like my use of the English
Like,
language.
how are you justifying using a singular personal pronoun I to refer to consciousness? Because you don't. How are you justified in believing that any given consciousness lasts long enough to say or think the word I?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, I've been socialized, like, you know, ever since I was born. It's all, you know, it's just the way our language is designed. I learned it. I didn't like.
How do you know you were born? How do you know that you were socialized? Again, I'm giving you a hypothetical scenario in which the only type of consciousness is only like it only lasts like a nanosecond. It's a rapid succession of different.
Scheme of things, they last a nanosecond. Is what you're saying, or?
I'm saying the stream of consciousness that you're experiencing could be a rapid succession of nanosecond consciousnesses that come into existence and go out of existence in a nanosecond.
Okay,
so how do you know that's not happening right now?
I mean, I guess I don't.
Okay, so then you're using language without justification. So every time you say the word I, you're not justified in using the English language in that way. Doesn't that matter to you?
I mean, it does, but I feel like everyone, and I mean everyone, does things that they're not 100% certain of, you know, because I'm only limited to my own experience, you know. I could feel the presence of God within me, but, like, there's no, like, I guess, logical, like, way where I'm just taking everything at just face value, where I can prove that is beyond just my own consciousness, you know, my own perception.
Doesn't it make sense to put faith in a worldview in which the all-knowing being tells your mind what's true so that you can justify beliefs? Because do you believe in revelation from God? That God's revelation to us tells us the true nature of reality?
I think to a degree, but I feel that it gets filtered through the human experience, and that humans, because I mean I do agree that humans are very sinful in nature, but I think that if you take something that is pure as God or whatever anyone believes in, and you filter it through your own ego, your insecurities, your negativity that you've experienced, it's not going to come out the same thing. It's something you have to, I guess, kind of experience for yourself, but you can't describe.
So if the human mind messes up cognition and revelation from God, then you can't really know anything in that worldview, right? It would make sense to if you're going to put faith in the belief that cognition and intelligibility exist and that knowledge exists, then in order to be consistent, you should believe that God has the ability to and does render you certain about certain things about reality. Like, he makes you believe the truth about reality so you can be justified in your beliefs and make knowledge claims. But if he doesn't do that, then knowledge claims are impossible to justify. And every time you claim to know something, you're unjustified in that claim, and you're not making any sense.
I mean, I agree. I mean, in like, there's an idea in science that like nothing can be 100% true, like proven, because there could always be that one experiment that doesn't go the way you expect it to. So I agree. It is impossible for me to 100% know anything that I say. That's why I consider myself agnostic, because my worldview is always changing. With more input that I receive, the more that I experience the world and observe, my worldview is going to change. And I feel like I'd rather be fluid so that I can, I guess, I'm losing my train of thought here. I don't discuss this often.
Yeah. Like without. Everybody puts faith in a worldview and in order to interpret reality. We look at the world through a lens, and so we need to think about what worldview actually justifies beliefs. Is it a worldview in which not revelation from God gets messed up by our own mind, and therefore we can't justify our beliefs? Or is it a worldview in which God actually renders us certain about things by making us believe the truth about certain things? Like, God does that for us concerning the basic nature of reality so that we can justify our other beliefs. There's a core set of beliefs that we are certain about, because if we weren't certain about them, then any other knowledge claim we make would be unjustified and knowledge would be impossible. So God has to, in order for us to be consistent when we say knowledge exists, we also should put faith in the fact that God reveals to us with certainty what is true at the fundamental level of reality, like that more than one mind exists and that we perceive reality correctly most of the time with our consciousness. Like, if we don't know the true nature of reality from God at a fundamental level, then knowledge can't possibly exist. So if you're going to make knowledge claims, I encourage you to be consistent and put faith in the Christian worldview in which God does render us certain about certain things.
Are there not other faiths? I'm not saying that Christianity is wrong because of this, but are there not other faiths that are certain in their respective worldviews?
And right, like you think like Islam, also has a omniscient God who reveals the truth to people. You're talking about that?
Their truth might be different.
So how do we know that?
How do you make like that distinction of which one is the actual?
Yeah. Well, we have to think about, in order to justify knowledge claims, we have to put faith in an ultimate authority. Actually, everybody puts faith in an ultimate authority. It's whatever you put faith in. Like, for you, it might be your own mind. But in the Christian worldview, the ultimate authority is God's mind and Him as King. He reveals to us what's true, and if we stop believing in what He says, then we're stuck in a limbo where it's just our own mind, and then from this supposedly neutral position, you're trying to evaluate all these other religions. But as soon as you abandon what God already said about Islam, you're stuck with your own finite consciousness, and you can't justify beliefs about anything at that point. You can't even be justified in believing that human beings even exist who believe in Islam. For example, you talk about Islam, but how do you know that Islam even exists as a belief system? I'm not asking you if you think Islam is true, but how do you know if it even exists as something that people believe? Because how do you know that people even exist in the first place to believe Islam?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I guess what I don't understand is why. You might laugh at this, but why does it matter? Like, I don't like. At the end of the day, I'm concerned with the human state. I would consider myself like, I'm not a Buddhist, but I follow some of those teachings, so I'm concerned with human suffering. So if Islam exists or not doesn't concern me. If you exist or not, or you're just a figment of my imagination, that thought itself is not actually constructive.
So you're asking me, like, how do we know it's not these other religions? And I'm saying I know that Islam is false because my ultimate authority tells me that it's false. And if I abandon my ultimate authority and say, well, no, I'm just going to use my own mind to try to evaluate whether or not Islam is true, at that point, I'm relying on finite, limited consciousness that doesn't know everything, and therefore I could always be wrong about everything I think I know, and then I can't come to a right conclusion about whether or not Islam is true or false.
But do you think your personal perception of God you think it is somehow outside of your own perception?
What do you mean?
So you're saying that if you abandon the Christian God, your ultimate creator,
right,
then I guess you're saying that your entire worldview is almost like up in the wind. It's like there's no anchor to it, right?
Right. I mean, because you're stuck with a finite, limited consciousness that doesn't know everything, and therefore you could always be wrong about everything you think is true.
But how do you know that you're not wrong about what you think is true?
About the Christian worldview?
Yes.
By the fact that if I was wrong about it, and if Christianity is not true, then you could not prove anything. So as soon as I assert the idea that proof is possible, in order to be consistent, I have to believe in the Christian worldview in which the all-knowing being reveals to finite minds what's true so they can prove things. The proof that Christianity is true is the fact that you couldn't prove anything unless it was true. It's a transcendental argument.
I'm going to have to research that, because that argument is a little bit heady for me.
Yeah, I mean, but it comes down to epistemology and justifying beliefs and demonstration. So people like to say, prove Christianity, prove that God exists, demonstrate that He exists. And my answer is, you're assuming that proof exists. Well, as soon as you put faith in proof existing and that you can actually demonstrate things, you can't actually prove things or demonstrate that things exist without revelation from the all-knowing being. So you have to assume that He exists for your question to even make sense.
So if I okay, let's say I know that unicorns don't exist, but if I suddenly, like, let's say I'm a biologist and I suddenly undertake a study to prove that unicorns exist, does that now suddenly make unicorns plausible? Just because I'm looking for proof. You know?
But that's not a relevant analogy, because that doesn't involve omniscience to non-omniscience. The all-knowing being who doesn't lie, revealing to non-omniscient people what's true. I'm saying that's the mechanism by which beliefs are justified. And so knowledge is justified true belief. Belief is synonymous with faith. So in order to have knowledge, you need faith. As soon as you make knowledge claims and you say, prove that God exists, show us that God exists, you're putting faith in knowledge existing. You're using faith. Well, if you're also putting faith in a worldview in which there's no revelation from the all-knowing being, then you're being terribly inconsistent, and you're in contradiction with yourself. You're saying, your worldview that you hold to can't justify beliefs. You can't know anything in that worldview. At the same time, you're saying, prove things. Show me this exists. Well, they're in conflict with one another. They don't work.
Yeah. Well, I do personally believe in God. I don't know the nature of God. And I'm not asking you to necessarily prove to me. I'm just having a discussion on this. But I understand your point. I'm gonna ask one more question, then I gotta go.
Okay.
If I were to take like an exact copy of you, but you were a Muslim instead, and you know, a Muslim would also be equally convicted in their faith. Does that give their faith justification? Because they also believe in everything that you're saying about an omniscient God and the other points that you're making. So how is that different? I guess what makes Christianity the one that is true?
The fact that God reveals that He is true. So.
But has He not done that for Muslims as well? Like,
well, He actually says that Islam is false. So God says Islam doesn't exist, is not true.
But does the Muslim God say that Islam is false?
Well, again, how do you know that Islam exists? You're assuming that Islam exists as something that people believe, but you can't even prove that people exist without God revealing to you in the Bible that they exist. So,
but
your question relies on the Christian worldview being true in order to make sense. But I'm saying, if Christianity is not true, you can't even be justified in believing that Muslims exist.
So, okay, I'm not sure I understand.
You can't, because I can't adopt a position of neutrality and say, look at all these, I'm going to look at all these different religions and figure out which one's true based on the evidence, because I have a finite consciousness and I don't know everything, and there could always be something I'm not aware of that could invalidate everything I think I know.
Yeah.
So, at any time in which I want to justify my beliefs and be someone with knowledge, I have to put faith in the Christian worldview in which I'm trusting in omniscience revealing to my non-omniscient mind what's true, so I can justify beliefs. If I take a neutral position and say, oh, maybe Islam's true, then now I can't know what's true at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm not analyzing each religion and be like, oh, this one's false, this one's true, I guess. I really feel like they all just get at different worldviews, and they're all just different people trying to explain things their own way. But I feel like your argument here is a bit circular, because your faith in God is informed by the Bible. But
everything's circular. We have to recognize at an epistemic level, everything requires circling back to your ultimate authority. For example, atheists use their consciousness to try to validate their own consciousness. That's vicious circular reasoning. They try to use their consciousness and the idea that consciousness is reliable to establish that consciousness is reliable. That's circular. But there's good circular reasoning, there's bad circular reasoning. The Christian circular reasoning is good because it doesn't appeal to finite consciousness, it appeals to omniscience.
But who wrote the Bible?
Men inspired by God, the omniscient one.
So, do you think, okay, let's say you look at those bushes over there, and I told you to create an exact copy of that. Do you think that you'd be able to create an exact copy of those bushes by memory? Like, let's say you're even a talented artist. Could you get every leaf correct?
No.
So, that's I believe that's parallel here. Like, you know, if God is revealing to Himself to me, like, God is way bigger than me, you know. I just don't think any person could, like, I think they can get at the idea, and I think the Bible can point the direction, but I don't see it as the ultimate truth. I see it as it's like fingers pointing at the moon. The Bible is the finger, God is the moon, you know?
Right, I'm not saying we can know everything about God, but we can know what He has revealed to us and made us certain about.
Yeah.
So He's powerful enough to be able to make us believe with certainty certain things about Him, right?
Yeah.
So that's how powerful He is.
I gotta get going, but it was good talking to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
My name's Matthias. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. I'm Matt.